The hidden strength of the shy child. Psychology explained, what if I told you that the quietest child in the room might be holding the deepest oceans inside them? That the one who avoids the spotlight, who clutches their thoughts tightly like precious stones, may be more attuned to the deepest realities of human experience than we give them credit for. In a world that idolizes loudness, performance, and charisma, we often overlook something ancient, something sacred: the silent power of the shy child. And in this video, I want us to go on an intellectual and emotional journey. One that will not only change the way you view shy children, but may also challenge how you view strength itself. Let's start with a simple but profound question. What does it mean to be strong? Society has taught us to associate strength with extroversion, dominance, speed, decisiveness, the qualities of leaders, performers, influencers. But what if that's only one kind of strength? What if there's another kind, quieter, slower, more internal, that doesn't announce itself but instead observes, reflects, and listens? The kind that doesn't conquer the world by charging into it, but by understanding it deeply, silently, and with immense care.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
When we see a shy child, the one who hesitates before speaking, who lingers on the edges of group activities, who seems to live more in their head than in the outer world, we often misinterpret them. We might say they're too sensitive, too quiet, or even socially behind. But I want to flip that narrative. I want you to consider a radical idea. What if the shy child is not weak, but wise? Not delayed, but deliberate? Not broken, but brilliant in a different frequency? Think about it. From a psychological standpoint, shyness is a form of heightened sensitivity to social stimuli. Shy children are constantly scanning, interpreting, and processing information, often more deeply than their extroverted peers. They notice subtleties in tone, body language, and social dynamics. They see things others miss. They are, in a sense, natural philosophers. And philosophy, at its core, is the art of noticing not just what is obvious, but what is hidden beneath the surface. Let's bring in the ancient thinkers for a moment. The Stoics believed that strength was not in controlling others, but in mastering the self. The Taoists believed that gentleness, flexibility, and receptivity were the highest forms of power. Even Socrates, the father of Western philosophy, was known for his humble questioning, not grand declarations. So why do we continue to treat shyness, a quality so aligned with introspection and self-awareness, as a flaw? Shyness is not just a personality trait. It is a lens through which the world is deeply examined. And here's the twist. The shy child may be overwhelmed, not because they are weak, but because they are absorbing everything. Every glance, every word, every silence. Where others speak quickly, they think slowly. Where others act instantly, they hesitate, not out of fear necessarily, but out of care. Because they feel the weight of decisions, the consequences of words, the vibrations of emotion. Let me ask you something that might change the way you remember your own childhood. Were there moments when you stayed silent, not because you had nothing to say, but because what you wanted to say was too big, too layered, too sacred to be spoken out loud? If so, you already understand this hidden strength. Now here's where it gets even deeper. Psychologists have studied what is sometimes called the slow-to-warm-up temperament in children, those who seem shy, cautious, reserved. What they found is that these children are not less capable, but more methodical. Their brains are more reactive to novelty, more cautious with risk. But over time, they often grow into deeply thoughtful, emotionally intelligent adults. In fact, many of the world's greatest artists, scientists, and thinkers were shy children. Why? Because creativity and insight often require solitude. They require the ability to sit with discomfort, to dwell in uncertainty, to listen more than speak. And yet, there's a tragedy here. Because instead of nurturing this depth, our systems often try to fix it. We push shy children to come out of their shell, to speak up more, to be normal. But what if the shell is not a prison but a sanctuary? What if, by trying to reshape them, we're asking butterflies to crawl instead of fly? Let me tell you a story. There was a young boy who said almost nothing in school. Teachers thought he was disengaged. But one day, during a class discussion on grief, he raised his hand for the first time, and what he said stunned the room. He spoke not just with clarity, but with a depth of emotional understanding that no one expected. Later, when asked why he hadn't spoken before, he simply said, "I was waiting until I had something real to say." That moment, that simple sentence reveals something profound. Shy children are not empty vessels needing to be filled. They are full vessels waiting for the right moment to pour. So here's what I want you to consider. What if we're not failing shy children because we don't understand them, but because we don't value their kind of strength? What if the future doesn't belong to the loudest voices, but to the deepest minds? Before we move to the next part of our journey, I want to leave you with a challenge. Can you recall a time when someone's quiet presence changed your life more than 1,000 words ever could? And if you were or are the shy one, can you reclaim that quiet as your superpower? The inner world of the quiet mind. Why silence speaks louder than words. When we speak of intelligence, we often imagine rapid-fire answers, confident speeches, or intellectual debates. But there is a kind of intelligence that does not perform. It does not seek the microphone or the applause. It dwells in the quiet moments, in the long pauses, and in the eyes of those who are still enough to listen. This is the intelligence of the quiet mind, and it is profoundly underrated in our noise-drenched culture. The shy child lives mainly in this inner world. What we see on the outside, the silence, the hesitations, the downcast eyes, are often misunderstood as emptiness or anxiety. But what if that external stillness is simply the surface of a vast and intricate inner landscape? Imagine a lake at dawn, still, reflective, seemingly calm, and yet beneath, teeming with life, depth, and movement. The shy child's mind is like that, constantly processing, constantly connecting, constantly creating. But all of it happens in silence. This silence is not a void, it's a medium. It's the space where thoughts are refined before being released. The quiet mind doesn't rush to speak because it treats words as sacred. It knows that to speak is to shape reality. And when you carry that kind of reverence for truth, you don't throw out words casually. You wait, you refine, you hold them back until they're ready to land with weight and meaning. Now, let's be honest. In today's world, silence is almost a threat. We fill every gap with scrolling, with talking, with noise. We fear silence because it forces us to confront ourselves. But for the shy child, silence is not frightening. It's home. It's where they recharge, reflect, and make sense of the chaos around them. And here's the paradox. By being silent, they often hear more. They notice the emotional shifts in a room before anyone else does. They watch how people treat each other when nobody's watching. They listen between the lines. Let me ask you something. What have you learned in silence that you never would have learned in noise? Think deeply about that. Because some of the most important insights in life don't come from what's said. They come from what's felt, what's noticed, what's withheld. In psychology, there's a fascinating idea known as introversion intuition. It's the ability to internally synthesize complex patterns, emotions, and signals, not in real-time conversation, but in the quiet aftermath. The shy child often processes interactions long after they've occurred. They replay conversations, examine facial expressions, reinterpret meanings. And through this, they gain a kind of social wisdom that's hard to teach in any classroom. It's a wisdom born not of performance, but of presence. Philosophically, we might even say that the shy child represents a kind of resistance to modernity. In a world obsessed with speed, productivity, and spectacle, the shy child slows down, notices, feels. They are not merely behind, they are outside the race altogether. And in that outsider status, they often discover truths that those caught in the rush may never see. What if this is not a defect but a design? What if nature created shy children not to compete but to observe? Not to dominate but to understand? In ancient tribes, there were always the watchers, the ones who didn't speak much but knew when the weather was changing, when danger was near, when someone was in pain. These individuals weren't loud, but they were essential. They were the intuitive ones, the ones who saw with their hearts. We need to reclaim that idea, because the shy child is not just a future artist or thinker. They are already a witness to the world's subtleties, and subtleties are exactly where the truth hides. Think about it. Isn't most of life made of subtle things? A glance, a moment of hesitation, a breath before a word. The shy child lives in those moments. They don't just pass through life. They absorb it, metabolize it, and sometimes, if we're lucky, they share a glimpse of what they've seen. Turning vulnerability into vision. The alchemy of emotional depth in shy children. There is a kind of vulnerability in every shy child that is both delicate and divine. To be shy is to be open, not in the extroverted sense of display, but in the deeper, more subtle sense of receptivity. The shy child feels more, absorbs more, and is often moved by things others overlook. And in that heightened sensitivity lies both their greatest struggle and their greatest strength. Because while the world may bruise them more easily, it also speaks to them more clearly. They are tuned into the emotional wavelengths that most of us have learned to ignore. Let us explore a paradox together. What if the very thing we consider a weakness, emotional sensitivity, is what opens the door to wisdom, creativity, and ultimately, vision? Vulnerability, in its rawest form, is the capacity to be affected, and to be affected is to be alive, attuned, and awake to the world's beauty and pain. The shy child walks through life with their emotional skin thinner than most, which means they register subtleties others miss. They notice when someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes. They feel the tension in a room like static in the air. They pick up on irony, contradiction, and unsaid truths. And this sensitivity, when honored and nurtured, becomes the seed of profound insight. But here's the problem. Our culture does not know what to do with this kind of depth. We confuse emotional openness with fragility. We train children to toughen up, to not take things personally, to just be confident. And in doing so, we often stomp out the very qualities that make the shy child unique. We force them to wear masks that suffocate their inner world. We ask them to perform normalcy instead of cultivating their natural gift of perception. Yet those very qualities, the ones that make them cry at a story, hesitate before speaking, or retreat in large groups, are the markers of a visionary in the making. Many of history's most impactful figures were deeply sensitive. Think of Emily Dickinson, who rarely left her room but gave the world a body of poetry that still stuns us with its clarity. Or Franz Kafka, whose social awkwardness belied a mind capable of articulating the existential dread of modernity. These were not loud figures. They were not performers. They were deep feelers who turned vulnerability into vision. So how can we help shy children, or the shy child within ourselves, make this transformation? It begins with understanding that emotional depth is not a liability. It is a form of intelligence, an instrument of connection, and a portal to creativity. The shy child may not speak often, but when they do, their words tend to come from a place of lived emotional truth. And that truth resonates in ways surface-level confidence never can. Let me ask you something that may unlock a memory. Have you ever been moved more by someone's quiet authenticity than by another's loud charisma? Have you ever felt seen, truly seen, by someone who didn't speak much but understood everything? That is the power of emotional depth. It doesn't demand attention. It earns trust. The practical side of this is critical too. Shy children often become extraordinary artists, writers, therapists, and thinkers. Not because they were taught to be outgoing, but because they were allowed to remain inward. They are often drawn to solitude, not because they dislike people, but because they feel people so intensely. And in solitude, they process, they reflect, they create. What they bring back from these inner journeys is often nothing short of alchemy, pain turned into poetry, fear into empathy, silence into insight. We need to stop trying to fix shy children. Instead, we must learn to listen to them, not just with our ears, but with our hearts. Because when we do, we realize that they are not broken, they are breaking through. Their vulnerability is not a sign of weakness, but a doorway into deeper forms of perception and compassion. And in a world increasingly dominated by noise, distraction, and performance, that kind of vision is not just valuable, it's essential. The quiet revolution. How shy children will change the future of humanity. Imagine a future where depth matters more than volume. Where leaders are chosen not for how loudly they speak, but for how deeply they listen. Where children are not molded to fit a single ideal, but nurtured into becoming the fullest version of their unique inner selves. This is not a fantasy. It is a quiet revolution, and at the center of it are the shy children we so often overlook. In a world that is rapidly changing, where artificial intelligence, climate anxiety, and global uncertainty are rewriting the rules of existence, the skills we once believed essential are beginning to shift. It's no longer enough to be loud or fast or dominant. What we need now are the qualities that shy children have been embodying all along: introspection, empathy, nuance, patience, and the ability to sit with complexity. These are the traits of the future, not because they're trendy, but because they're timeless. Let's think about it. What kind of mind is best suited for a world saturated with noise, contradiction, and speed? A reactive mind or a reflective one? The shy child, the one who pauses before speaking, who listens more than they talk, who feels the weight of every interaction, is exactly the kind of human being we need more of. Not despite their quietness, but because of it. And make no mistake, shy children grow up. They evolve, they adapt, but they don't become louder versions of everyone else. If nurtured with care, they become powerful in a different way. Their strength is not in dominance, but in depth. They don't crash into the world like meteors. They change it like rivers, slowly, persistently, shaping everything in their path without making a sound. I want you to imagine a boardroom where someone says nothing for the first 40 minutes of a meeting, and then speaks a single sentence that shifts the entire conversation. Imagine a classroom where the quietest student writes an essay that changes the way even the teacher sees the world. Imagine a home where a child's silence isn't a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be understood. That is the world we must build. A world that recognizes that stillness can be just as powerful as motion. There's a Japanese concept called the space between things, the silence between notes in music, the pause in conversation that gives a word its meaning. Shy children live in the They are not just waiting to speak. They are creating meaning in the waiting. They are not just avoiding the spotlight. They are cultivating the vision that comes from standing in the shadows. And when they do emerge, when they finally share what they've been holding inside, the world cannot help but listen. So here is the deepest truth of all. Shy children are not incomplete extroverts. They are complete introverts. And in that completeness lies an entire universe of insight, innovation, and wisdom that we have barely begun to tap into. We must no longer ask them to change for the world. We must begin changing the world for them. Because the future does not belong to those who make the most noise. It belongs to those who hear what others cannot. Those who feel what others avoid. Those who carry the weight of the unspoken and translate it into understanding. Let me leave you with one final question, one that may linger long after this video ends. What would the world look like if we finally listened to the quiet ones? That is the revolution. And it begins not with a shout, but with a whisper. Thank you for watching.